Well, India and Israel push forward on long-pending free trade pact with two-phase rollout plan after signing key negotiation framework during Minister Piyush Goyal's what he calls very successful visit. India deepens textile and sericulture ties with Georgia as high-level Ministry of Textiles delegation strengthens cooperation and showcases global silk research collaborations. Union Minister Nitin Gadkari pushes for stronger farmer-producer companies, tech adoption and district-level solutions to boost productivity and make agriculture more profitable. Indian origin steel tycoon Lakshmi Nivas Mittal leaves the United Kingdom for Dubai as looming labour tax hikes spark a fresh wave of billionaire exits ahead of the upcoming budget. US tech giants oppose Jio and Vodafone Idea's push for 6 GHz mobile spectrum, urge government to reserve ban for Wi-Fi. And a Magic Pin Rapido partnership takes aim at Zomato's Swiggy duopoly as new alliance links 80,000 restaurants with Rapido's delivery fleet to expand Only's reach. Let's begin with the top story that we're following for you, which developed over the weekend. And it's important to put that in perspective as the union government has rolled out a sweeping overhaul of India's labour laws, merging 29 separate regulations into 4 new labour codes that came into effect on November 21st. Now, these include the Code on Wages, the Industrial Relations Code, the Social Security Code, and the Occupational Safety and Health Code. The aim is to modernize India's labour framework, boost ease of doing business and better protect workers. And whether you're a full-time, part-time employee, a contract worker, or even on a digital platform, these new rules could change your earnings, your job terms, your benefits, as well as your rights. Now let's take a look at some of the key changes that every employee needs to know. First, minimum wages have now been expanded to cover every worker, whether you're in the organized sector, the unorganized sector, small establishments, or even a gig worker. A national floor wage will be set, ensuring no worker falls below a basic income level. Next up, a new standard definition of wages means your basic pay must form at least 50% of your salary. This may slightly reduce your take-home pay owing to taxes, but it boosts contribution to the Provident Fund as well as gratuity, strengthening long-term financial security. Now, gig as well as platform workers are also now part of India's social security net for the first time ever. Companies like delivery platforms and ride-hailing apps will contribute to a dedicated fund that provides insurance and other protections to gig workers. Fixed-term employees now get gratuity after just 1 year instead of 5 years earlier, making it easier for short-term workers to receive this financial benefit. Now, every new worker must receive a formal appointment letter, even in informal and gig setups, giving documented proof of wages, duties, and entitlements. And if an employee works overtime, he must be compensated or paid at least double the normal wage rate. Leave benefits are also easier to access now. Employees now qualify for annual paid leave after 180 days instead of 240 days earlier. Women can now work night shifts across all establishments, but only with their consent and with mandatory safety measures in place, ensuring both equality as well as protection. Work from home arrangements have been formally recognized for the services sector, giving more flexibility to both employees as well as employers. Now, employees above the age of 40 are entitled to free annual health checkups, promoting preventive care and early detection. Wage payments must also be made on time within 7 days for monthly wage earners and within 2 working days in case of resignation or termination. Importantly, accidents while commuting to and from work will now be treated as employment-related, making workers eligible for compensation. Now remember, Together, these reforms aim to modernize India's workforce, bring clarity and fairness to employment, and give workers stronger protection in the evolving economic landscape. And moving on now, US President Donald Trump's sharp targeted attacks on three of the world's major emerging economies are now having an unintended positive consequence as they have led the countries to come closer. The leaders of India, Brazil and South Africa met in Johannesburg on the sidelines of the G20 summit on Sunday, giving renewed importance to the long-dormant IBSA Forum, a trilateral grouping of democracies from the global south. It's the first time in more than a decade that the leaders themselves have convened under IBSA, even though their foreign ministers have kept the platform active. Opening the meeting, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa said the grouping stands for diversity as a source of strength and stressed the need for the three countries to act as co-architects of a more representative and responsive global system. Listen in.
As this is the first G20 Leader Summit to be held in Africa, it carries the hopes and must reflect the aspirations of the people of this continent and of the world. We should not allow anything to diminish the value, the stature, and the impact of the first African G20 presidency. This G20 Leader Summit has a responsibility not to allow the integrity and the credibility of the G20 to be weakened. In fact, from this summit, we should have a sense that the G20 has been strengthened.
Now, this alliance, IBSA, that stands for India, Brazil, South Africa, the trilateral alliance comes against the backdrop of escalating tensions with Washington. Remember, President Trump had targeted India, Brazil and South Africa with steep tariffs. India has been hit with a 50% tariff hike, a move tied to its ongoing ties with Russia, while Trump has also provoked New Delhi with repeated claims of mediating a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. Move to South Africa. Trump has skipped the G20 summit entirely and stoked outrage with unfounded allegations of a genocide against white farmers. Meanwhile, in Brazil, Trump slapped high tariffs on imports in an attempt to pressure the country to drop a case against his ally, former President Jair Bolsonaro, who faces accusations of plotting a coup. But Brazilian President Lula da Silva pushed back strongly, prompting Trump to roll back some of those tariff measures, a rare diplomatic win for Lula da Silva. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has called for a global compact to prevent the misuse of artificial intelligence, urging world leaders to ensure that critical technologies remain human-centric rather than finance-centric. Speaking at the third session of the G20 summit in Johannesburg, Prime Minister Modi said technology should be global, open source and accessible, not locked behind exclusive national models. He highlighted how India has built this approach into its own tech ecosystem, from space applications to AI and digital payments, where India is now a global leader. Prime Minister Modi further said AI must be used only for global good and warned against threats like deepfakes, crime and terror. He proposed a global framework built on human oversight, safety by design, transparency and strict safeguards to stop its misuse. And staying with other global stories where India is taking charge, India and Israel are moving closer to finalizing the long-pending free trade agreement, with both sides now considering a two-phase rollout to deliver easy benefits to businesses in both the countries. Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal confirmed the plan after a three-day visit to Israel, which he described as very successful, noting strong enthusiasm from Israeli industry leaders and government officials to deepen economic ties with India. Remember, on Thursday, the two nations signed the terms of reference to formally begin FTA negotiations. The framework includes easing market access for goods by reducing tariff as well as non-tariff barriers, simplifying customs procedures, boosting cooperation in innovation and technology transfer, and promoting smoother trade in services. Piyush Goyal also held meetings with several technology companies and visited the Paris Center for Peace and Innovation, where he highlighted Israel's ability to turn every crisis into an opportunity for progress. He had detailed discussions with Israeli Minister of Economy and Industry, Nir Barkat, on the next steps to strengthen bilateral ties. Nir Barkat has agreed to visit India soon with a large business delegation. Now, if finalized, the free trade agreement is expected to majorly expand trade, investment and tech collaboration between India and Israel, with a phased implementation helping both sides see early gains. Listen in to Piyush Goyal.
एक बहुत ही सफल 3 दिवसीय इजराइल का दौरा रहा। बड़े पैमाने पे यहाँ के उद्योग जगत में, यहाँ के सरकार में उत्साह है भारत के साथ संबंध और मजबूत बनाने का, जिसके रहते हमने टर्म्स ऑफ रेफरेंस भी फाइनलाइज करके साइन कर दिए, जिसके आधार पर अब फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट की बातचीत शुरू हो जाएगी। कई सारे टेक्नोलॉजी की कंपनियों के साथ भी मेरी चर्चा हुई अलग से। पेरिस सेंटर ऑफ पीस एंड इनोवेशन में हमने देखा कैसे हर आपदा को इजराइल ने चुनौती समझकर उसमें से लाभ निकालने का काम किया, उसको अवसर बनाया और उसमें से चाहे वो सुरक्षा का क्षेत्र हो, चाहे स्वास्थ्य का क्षेत्र हो, चाहे इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स टेक्नोलॉजी का क्षेत्र हो, अलग अलग क्षेत्रों के बहुत लाजवाब नवाचार इनोवेशन पर सफलता प्राप्त की है।
Now, staying with this story, Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal also met Israeli President Isaac Herzog on Sunday and discussed the full spectrum of bilateral cooperation from trade and investment to science, technology and innovation. Goyal shared positive outcomes from the Business Forum and CEOs Forum and highlighted the first big step towards launching free trade agreement negotiations. He also met Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, updating him on talks with Economy Minister Nir Barkat and the progress made by the 60-member Indian business delegation. Piyush Goyal underlined that the newly signed terms of reference will accelerate trade, investment and tech collaboration while combining Israel's high-tech strengths with India's scale and talent to drive the partnership forward. And moving on now to other news from the political economic landscape of the country. Union Minister Nitin Gadkari stressed the importance of creating strong farmer-producer companies to boost the welfare and income of cultivators. Speaking at a workshop organized by AgroVision, Gadkari said that all issues faced by farmers should be addressed at the district level through these companies. He explained that such organizations can help farmers share resources like tractors, harvesters and other equipment, making it easier to manage costs and repay loans. Gadkari also highlighted the need to reduce production costs, increase crop yields and adopt new technologies including AI to make farming more efficient. He added that these steps are essential to ensure farmers become more prosperous. Listen in.
के मन में ये एप्रीहेंशन है कि ये बड़े किसान धनवान लोगों के
छोटे किसान के लिए
पहली बात बता दूं, ये सबसे छोटे से छोटे आधा एकड़ वाले किसान के लिए है। एक आधा एकड़ वाले 50 किसान इकट्ठा हुए, जैसे मैंने 30 एकड़ इकट्ठा किया और उनको एक बनाया, तो वैसे उनको होकर, और इसका एकड़ में खर्चा इतना निग्लिजिबल है कि जो एक्चुअली मैं अगर ये बोलने का धाड़स आप दिखो मत, और मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि जो पर एकड़ खर्चा था 5,000 रुपए, ये करने के बाद वो खर्चा आएगा 3,500 रुपए में, 1,500 रुपए बचत होगी और इसका खर्चा है 500 रुपए, यानी 1,000 रुपए एकड़ सेविंग होगा, खर्चा नहीं है।
And in other stories coming in this morning, Indian original steel tycoon Lakshmi Nivas Mittal, long considered one of Britain's wealthiest residents, has decided to leave the United Kingdom as the Labour government prepares a major tax shake-up targeting the super rich in that country. According to a report, the 75-year-old billionaire, originally from Rajasthan and worth an estimated £15.5 billion, has shifted his tax residency to Switzerland and plans to spend much of his time now in Dubai. Mittal, who heads the global steel giant ArcelorMittal, has reportedly become the latest billionaire to exit the UK ahead of Chancellor Rachel Reeves' upcoming budget on Wednesday. The government is scrambling to fill a £20 billion hole in public finances and fears are growing that new taxes could hit the wealthy even harder, including a possible 20% exit tax for those moving abroad. Now, Mittal already owns a mansion in Dubai and has now purchased land on the Naya Island in the UAE. His departure follows earlier tax increases announced last year, including higher capital gains tax and reduced relief for entrepreneurs. US tech giants Apple, Amazon, Cisco, Meta, HP as well as Intel are pushing back against Reliance Jio and Vodafone Idea's demand to use their 6 GHz spectrum band for mobile services. In a joint submission to telecom regulator TRAI, or the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, these companies said the entire 6 GHz band should instead be reserved for Wi-Fi, arguing that the technology and commercial ecosystem for mobile use in this band simply isn't ready yet. They have also advised the government not to set any auction timelines for the upper 6 GHz range until after the Global Telecom Meet, which will determine future rules for this spectrum. Now, the government has already said that 400 megahertz in this band is available for auction. Another 300 megahertz will open up by 2030 and 500 megahertz will be delicensed for Wi-Fi. Meanwhile, the telecom industry body COAI, or the Cellular Operators Association of India, has strongly opposed delicensing any part of this band, saying it will permanently limit India's future mobile broadband capacity and give an unfair edge to global Wi-Fi and device players. And news coming up from the startup space, and especially the much heated race for quick commerce delivery as well as food delivery. Now, Magic Pin and Rapido are teaming up in a move aimed at breaking the stronghold of Zomato and Swiggy in India's food delivery market. The partnership will connect Magic Pin's nationwide network of over 80,000 restaurants into Rapido's new delivery platform only, giving it massive expansion beyond Bengaluru. In return, Magic Pin will gain access to Rapido's delivery fleet in select cities. Rapido says its focus is on building reliable and affordable full-stack delivery solutions. Time for a short break, but coming up on the other side, a mood check on Indian stock markets. They seem to have opened in the green, but what are some of the triggers that market players are anticipating this week, especially as data comes again on FPIs and FIIs being net sellers so far in the month of November? We'll get you that on the other side of the break with Firoz Aziz, who'll be joining us shortly. You're watching Morning Brief at 9.
What is speed? Do you ever see it? Or is it something you feel? Speed, it's relative. The more you speed up, the more the world slows down. And when you are fast enough, everything becomes still. That's when you see the world as it truly is. Servo Hypersport F5, when speed is your default.
जी, आपने भारत कनेक्ट का नाम सुना है?
शादी वादी कराना है क्या?
शादी नहीं, 5 लाख एजेंट्स की मदद से बिल पेमेंट्स पॉसिबल बनाते हैं।
ओ,
जैसे अभी किया।
शाबाश।
आप हमें जानते नहीं पर मानते जरूर हैं। हम हैं भारत कनेक्ट।
Eastern India's first Business and Economy Literature Fest 2025 on 20th and 21st December at Taj Tal Kutir, Kolkata.
EIILM presents Business and Economy Literature Fest. Curation and ideation partner, Story Nest. Knowledge partner, Penguin. And industry partner, the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
ये बेस्ट है सर।
हमेशा वाला क्यों नहीं?
मिश्रा जी, आपके लिए फूलों की बरसात, बिरला ओपस एश्योरेंस देने के लिए।
मतलब प्रोडक्ट वारंटी?
ये एक्स्ट्रा है। 1 साल में पेंट को कुछ भी हुआ तो पेंटिंग वापस करके देंगे।
वापस करके देंगे?
वो भी फ्री। पेंटिंग में पहली बार बिरला ओपस एश्योरेंस। रजिस्टर करो birlaopus.com पर।
Light, camera, and action. Kick back, relax, grab your favorite snack because News9 is here with your weekend dose of entertainment. It's time to take a deeper dive into the buzzworthy happenings of the entertainment world. From celebrity gossips to exclusive conversations, from nostalgic moments to News9's pick of the week, don't worry, we've got you covered here. And I hope you've grabbed your popcorn by now because News9's page 3 is here to serve you everything that we call entertainment. So do stay tuned every Saturday and Sunday, 2:30 p.m.
Welcome back. You're watching News 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. It's time now to head straight into a view from Dalal Street. And it seems that the Indian stock markets this morning are taking the positive cues from its Asian peers and have opened in the green, albeit there seems to be just a small gap up opening in the stock markets this morning. But overall, the trend of last week and this week seems to be in positive territory. And both Sensex as well as the Nifty 50 are opening a little strong this morning, although it's just a 1.15% or so hike in both these indices. Sensex, as we speak right now, is up at about 85,351 points. Now, remember, this is just the first 10 minutes or so of market opening, and things could move in either direction. But right now, as things stand, Sensex is just about 600 points away from its lifetime high that it touched in late September 2024. So it seems that if this positive momentum continues, we aren't potentially too far away from Sensex and Nifty hitting those lifetime highs and even breaching those. Nifty 50, as things stand right now, is at about 26,100 odd levels, about 150, 180 points away from its lifetime high. Now, of course, the Asian markets as well as the US markets, which closed positively on Friday, especially Alphabet, which ended about 3% higher, is something which has really helped the Indian markets also rake in the numbers this morning. A lot of data awaited. We'll tell you all about that later. Meanwhile, let's look at the Nifty 50 heat map and try and see which are the companies and which are the sectors which are adding momentum to the market this morning. As it seems to be that the IT sector is, of course, taking in all the positive news from the US, including the possibility of another rate cut by the US Fed. And that's something that is now leading the IT pack to be a little stronger than what we've seen all year long this year. So Nifty, the Infosys stock is up about 2.5%. HCL Tech is up about 1.8%. Similar news coming in even from Wipro. Meanwhile, Mahindra & Mahindra stock is down about 1.25%. Bharti Airtel is down about 50 basis points, and the banking sector is more or less flat this morning. Feroz Aziz joins us this Monday morning to just help us understand what should investors really expect this week, because this week is a week which is replete with the data which is likely to come in, and one big data is going to be India's Q2 GDP numbers, which are going to be announced, the Q2 GDP numbers which are going to be announced on Friday. But of course, the much awaited India-US trade deal, no news forward on that. Feroz, what should investors look at this week?
Good morning, Kartik. I personally think this week, of course, the data, especially the GDP data, like you rightly pointed out, is going to be one of the triggers, but that's going to come at the fag end of
Friday.
the week.
Yeah.
So there is going to be range-bound activity whenever there's large data which is supposed to be expected, or large triggers are expected to be coming in. One thing which markets clearly have shown is a range-bound activity. So that's one thing which you can expect out of a week like this. Second point is, I think, of course, the the drop in the rupee value signaled not a positive sign for the trade deal. And that's why there was some nervousness in the rupee market.
Right.
That's point 2. Point 3, I personally think you should not be short in this market for sure, because shorting could be for those people who like to dabble in derivatives. Being short at these times might pay off, but the odds are lower. And if the odds are lower, and if there's so much selling already there in the index futures from FIIs, it's always scary that any data can trigger a short covering, and you don't want to be caught on the wrong foot, because 88% of FIIs as of Friday are short in index futures. They are light on the cash market. DI is sitting on cash to deploy. So I would always, like I've told you, from 22,000 Kartik of Nifty, that market is going to be having a gravity upwards than downwards.
All right, a gravity upwards than downwards. But do talk to us about the weakening rupee. What does an investor make of this? Because does it not make investing in the Indian market that much more affordable and the returns that much higher for global investors? But the data is that FIIs, FPIs have been pulling out. In fact, in the month of November, the first 21 days of November, again, we've seen about 3,800 odd crore rupees of cash which has exited the Indian market.
Yes, Kartik, rightly pointed out, October had become a positive month with, if I'm not wrong, $1.5 billion inflow in dollar terms. And November, again, some trickling money out is there. But I personally think that FIIs are so light that they don't have much to sell. Active FIIs, passive FIIs can't sell because they need, if Vanguard has to sell a specific stock in NSE small cap 250, he needs to get trillions of dollars of redemption in his world stock index fund to sell this small stock in India. So I personally think passive guys are not discretionary money managers. So active guys have sold. So there's very little selling. I personally think this financial year could be one of the last financial years where FII can exit money from the listed space. Of course, they've been doing a lot in the unlisted space, and the OFS or the IPO market, quite a few private equity funds have exited. That will continue. But after listing, it's unlikely that there'll be a lot of money flowing out of the listed space in the next financial year. So we are at the fag end of it, is the point being made.
All right, fag end, hopefully, of FPIs, FIIs exiting. I want to talk to you specifically about the IT sector, and for a change, this is one sector which is having a good Monday morning, Firoz. We've seen a very, very volatile calendar year, but now it seems that some cues, despite the AI bubble fears, now some positive cues coming from the US, some expectations of the US Fed to finally go ahead and cut those interest rates. So we are seeing some positive action here on IT stocks. But staying with the IT space, there are two more developments that I want to discuss with you. First up being that TCS has now been issued a $194 million damages in a trade secret act, which should have acted in the negative for TCS. But I think the momentum is so strong that we are potentially not seeing that. I'll get your view on that. And the second happens to be by way of Eternal, because now this new labor code which has come in, is this going to entail higher employee costs and higher overall costs, operational costs for Swiggy, Zomato and all these players, given that they'll have to treat gig workers pretty much in the same light as formal workers?
Yes, Kartik, let me take these two very large questions in one by one. One is, of course, on the IT side, there's a fundamental negative correlation which Indian IT has thrown up with, especially the US IT. Generally, we would see strong correlation, but the correlation broke when the entire Indian IT space lost the innovation rally, which it was never a part of, or never positioned to be, or nor has they created that kind of shareholder expectation. Of course, when you speak to any FII, says Indian IT has lost the race and they've not participated in the AI frenzy. I personally think whenever there is some degree of fear of AI frenzy, IT stocks of India could do better. It's basically negatively correlated over the last 1.5 years, then positively correlated. That's one. Second, I personally think that any stock reacting to news completely depends on how many short-term traders are there in that stock. If you look at Indian IT, like you said, it has not delivered. When it doesn't deliver, all these short-term traders or 1 month, 3 month, 4 month momentum-based traders or owners of shares, not just traders of a day or two. There are quite a few momentum players in the market, they get washed away. They get completely eliminated. No IT stock, or if I'm not wrong, no IT stock is there in NSE 500's Momentum 50 index. So when it's not there in the Momentum 50, quite a few frothy shareholders who are 6-month shareholders, 3-month shareholders who love price rather than business are not there. So that's what is happening to Indian IT. The mean reversion becomes very high probability once those people leave the stock.
All right. And that is, of course, one part of the story. The other part is expectations of the US Fed to cut the rate again by about 25 basis points. Is that something which is going to augur positively for the Indian IT market?
Yes, I think it'll have little extra lever to an IT space, but I think Fed cutting interest rates is going to help the overall Indian money as well. And I think once the interest rates get cut there is that much more liquidity in the US as far as US is concerned. I personally think cutting interest rates is the only way for the Fed. Of course, there were quite a few impediments in the form of inflation and employment data, which was a deterrent. But I think the Fed rate cut is going to help IT. Little more than the rest of the Indian market or the US market, not so differentially beneficial for the IT sector.
All right. And now talk to us about, let's say, companies like Eternal as well as Swiggy with the new labor code now announced coming in, higher operational costs for these companies. What should investors make of it?
I think one is quite a few labor-intensive listed companies will have an impact.
Okay.
It'll also depend on the implementation of the reform. But are these dramatic reforms? The answer is a big yes. Having limits on per week, per day in terms of working hours will definitely contribute to cost escalations, largely for businesses which have greater than 50-60% of their total cost to labor. And I think all these tech-driven, labor-intensive companies like you just mentioned will have an impact for sure. But I think the short-term impact is going to be more of demand and supply on their stock. But I think the long-term impact will need to be deciphered of how they maneuver. There is going to be innovation from the companies. I think Indian industry has been reasonably innovative.
Yeah.
So I would want to see what people pull off their bag before I can conclude what kind of profitability damage this could create.
All right. I like the term innovation being used in this context, Feroz. I also want to talk to you about a new sort of story which has emerged, and this is the rejig of Sensex, which is going to happen on December 22nd, if I'm not mistaken, where Indigo is going to replace Tata Motors. Now, Tata Motors stock, as we are looking at it right now, is already down about 1% or so. But overall, the advantages of index investing likely to now accrue to Indigo and perhaps Tata Motors. The stock has been under pressure. The company has demerged two separate businesses. Now, overall, more pressure on Tata Motors, not just the commercial vehicles, but not just the passenger vehicles, but also the commercial vehicles.
I can't comment on a specific stock, Kartik, but I can tell you
I'm bullish on about just index investment advantages that likely to accrue for a few companies and become a disadvantage for the others.
Yes, definitely, Kartik. If you see, Eternal got included. I'm now just giving you data, not an opinion. You look at the behavior of a stock after it gets into an index like a Sensex and a Nifty, it's going to have an impact. If there are 20 constituents in Nifty which suddenly become a part of Sensex, that change does not impact too much, because if you look at the 9 lakh crores of EPFO money in index, which is Nifty and Sensex both, but there are about 11-12 lakh crores of ETF and index funds which are there, and 90% of that money is in Sensex and Nifty. If there are two kinds of changes you would see. One change is Nifty to Sensex inclusion, hardly any difference, because most of them track Nifty. Not that there will be any substantive influx of money when that change happens. But if something came into Nifty, that's something which is not ignorable at all. But don't wait till it gets into Nifty is what I tell traders or people who are actually intrigued by impact of stock price by inclusions in indices. Right. You always have to front predict it. It's very easy to predict who will be a part of Nifty and Sensex, because the formula is given on NSE's website. So most of the 4 changes which happened last year in Nifty were predicted at least 2 months before by a small little algorithm we wrote.
All right, Feroz. I also want to talk to you this morning about the oil sector, especially Reliance Industries, ONGC. The fact that that there is now this final offer that Donald Trump is saying, which is on the table, a 28-point peace deal agenda for Ukraine. Some potential hopes of peace finally between Russia and Ukraine. Is that going to have any impact on the oil market, given the fact that in any case India has stopped buying oil from Russia? Overall, is that going to lead to some stability in oil prices if Russia gets formally included back into the oil market?
Yes, definitely. I think that will have a reasonably long-term impact on global crude oil prices, one. Second, I think that the Indian, at the juncture we are in, especially in oil and natural gas kind of sector with the listed space, especially those nifty stocks, which I think are about 5% weight, 3.5 to 5% weight, depending on what prices are there on those stocks which are included in Nifty. There will be a positive impact in the long run because mean reversion has been awaited. They have done very badly in spite of a great growth in earnings.
Right. I also wanted to check with you because we are now almost at the end of this calendar year. It's been more than a year since the stock markets had hit their lifetime high in late September last year. But right now, as things stand, and if this positive momentum were to continue, we're just about 600 odd points on the Sensex away from the lifetime high. On Nifty 50, we are just about 250 points away from that benchmark, that sort of pinnacle of the index. Do you think this calendar year, end of this calendar year, we will see markets touch that high note once again?
Yes, Kartik, it can touch a high note or even higher. That's not something which is a low probability event. It's a high probability event. Markets can do whatever they want. So I think it's all about, not about certainty of what I think. It's about more of probabilities of what could transpire. So I personally think, given the kind of equation we have today, I think re-establishing peaks or creating new peaks is a higher probability, 90% probability or 85% probability event. But there is 15% chance for the other side anyway. But I personally think, like last year, same time, you look at the long positions which FIIs were sitting on index futures were 89 to 91. And that's when I said the markets need to slow down. What happens is people have a static view for a year. Nifty went from 26,200 to 21,700. I was speaking to a few experts or FIIs. They've been statically negative. You can't be negative in an index at 26,000 and still be negative at 22,000. That's what most of us humans have an overhang of our opinion for long periods of time at different prices. So I was equally bullish at 22,000 as much as I was saying that the mass market will grasp for breath last year. Just looking at a simple data of index futures, long positions of FIIs was upwards of 85%. Those are definite indicators of market will now take a pause. Now on the current side, we are back to the same levels of Nifty almost, but the FII index futures is just the opposite of what it was a year back, 88 short. So that's why I said the beginning of the show, gravity will be upwards.
All right, gravity will be upwards. And let's hope that by the end of this calendar year, we will have markets race back to those previous levels. This morning, thank you so much, Feroz Aziz, for joining us and for your time. And before we slip into another break, let's look at some of the global stories that we're following for you this morning. The United States and Ukraine say they finalized an updated and refined peace framework to end the Russian war, an overhaul of a draft Ukraine once criticized for being too soft on Moscow. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky thanks America and US President Donald Trump, but accuses Kyiv of showing zero gratitude for America's latest peace proposal in the high-stakes Geneva negotiations. The European Union chief Ursula von der Leyen insists no Ukraine peace deal can legitimize territorial changes by force, calling for a central EU role in securing any final settlement between Russia and Ukraine. European and African leaders set to gather in Angola on Monday for a summit aimed at deepening economic and security ties that will serve as a backdrop to emergency talks on Ukraine. United States reportedly prepares escalated actions on Venezuela, targeting Nicolas Maduro's government and signaling a sharper turn in Trump's pressure campaign. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa celebrates a consensus declaration at the first G20 held on African soil, despite the United States boycotting the summit. Nations seal a modest agreement at the UN Climate Summit in the Brazilian Amazon as many countries swallow weaker terms on fossil fuel phase-out to preserve unity. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi calls Japan's Taiwan stance shocking after Prime Minister Takaichi suggests Tokyo could react military to a Chinese attack on Taipei. Australian teens are being prompted to verify identities as social media platform Snapchat braces for the world's toughest online safety law, kicking from December 10th. These stories on the other side of the break. You're watching Morning Brief at 9.
खेलता है झूलता उछलता है दौड़ता कभी कभी दौड़ कराता है आगे आगे बढ़ता है इंडिया अमूल दूध पीता है इंडिया।
A resurgent India is racing towards the Viksit Bharat goal, braving global economic headwinds. Bulletproofing our economy from these uncertainties are Bharat's homegrown businesses. Powered by tech-led innovation, Indian entrepreneurs are truly scaling up, riding the next wave of disruption with AI and cloud to break into the big global league. TV9 Network in association with SAP presents Visionaries of Viksit Bharat, a series celebrating inspirational business leaders shaping tomorrow. Watch them take an iconic leap at Visionaries of Viksit Bharat conclaves. Exclusively on News9.
यही मौका है बिजनेस को बढ़ाने का, पर पैसा।
अपनी सुपर पावर यूज करने का टाइम आ गया है।
आप टेंशन मत लीजिए, IIFL फाइनेंस से झटपट गोल्ड लोन लीजिए और बिजनेस आगे बढ़ाइए।
आपके जैसे सुपर हीरोज ऐसी छोटी मोटी प्रॉब्लम से थोड़ी ना रुकते हैं, इसीलिए लाइफ जब भी आगे बढ़ने का मौका दे तो अपनी सुपर पावर, अपना गोल्ड यूज करिए और IIFL फाइनेंस से गोल्ड लोन लीजिए। IIFL फाइनेंस करता है सीधी बात।
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Brief at 9 right here on News9. Let's now move to global stories that we're following for you. And to begin with, let's put the spotlight on the potential end to the Russia-Ukraine war. The United States and Ukraine say they have agreed on an updated and refined peace framework to end the war with Russia, a reworked version of an earlier Trump administration plan that Kyiv and its allies had criticized as too lenient on Moscow. In a joint statement after talks in Geneva on Sunday, both sides called the discussions highly productive and said negotiations will continue this week. Details remain under wraps, including how Ukraine's long-term security guarantees will be structured. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who led the talks, said that negotiations have now narrowed the unresolved points in President Donald Trump's 28-point peace proposal.
It is probably the most productive day we have had on this issue, maybe in the entirety of our engagement, but certainly in a very long time. But work remains, and because this continues to be a working process, you know, I don't want to declare victory or finality here. There's still some work to be done, but we are much further ahead today at this time than we were when we began this morning and where we were a week ago for certain.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky struck a noticeably softer tone towards Washington on Sunday, just hours after US President Donald Trump accused Kyiv of showing zero gratitude for America's latest peace proposal in the high-stakes Geneva negotiations. Remember, earlier in the day, Trump posted on Truth Social that Ukraine's leadership has offered zero gratitude for his peace blueprint, a plan that incorporates several of Moscow's demands. Zelensky later responded on X with a more conciliatory message, saying Ukraine was grateful to the United States, to every American heart, and personally to President Trump, noting US weapons have been saving Ukrainian lives. Meanwhile, Ukrainian negotiations in Geneva and the negotiators there say the latest US proposal shows signs of shifting closer to Kyiv's position in the war. European officials, meanwhile, have stepped into the Geneva talks with their own counter-proposal to the US peace plan, pushing back against limits on Ukraine's military and rejecting any preset territorial concessions. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen underlined that Ukraine's borders cannot be changed by force, its army cannot be weakened to the point of vulnerability, and the EU must play a central role in any final agreement.
We have agreed on the main elements necessary for a just and lasting peace and Ukraine's sovereignty. And let me highlight three of them. First, borders cannot be changed by force. Second, as a sovereign nation, there cannot be limitations on Ukraine's armed forces that would leave the country vulnerable to future attack and thereby also undermining European security. Third, the centrality of the European Union in securing peace for Ukraine must be fully reflected.
And the United States is reportedly preparing to launch a new phase of Venezuela-related operations in coming days. The move signals an escalation in the Trump administration's pressure campaign against President Nicolas Maduro's government. Take a look.
The U.S. is poised to launch a new phase of Venezuela-related operations in the coming days, as the Trump administration escalates pressure on President Nicolas Maduro's government. That's according to 4 U.S. officials who spoke to Reuters on the condition of anonymity due to the sensitive nature of the action. A military buildup in the Caribbean has been underway for months, and U.S. President Donald Trump has authorized covert CIA operations in Venezuela. The U.S. government has been weighing Venezuela-related options to combat what it has portrayed as Maduro's role in supplying illegal drugs that have killed Americans. 2 U.S. officials said that options under consideration included attempting to overthrow Maduro. Maduro, in power since 2013, has denied having any links to the illegal drug trade. He has contended that Trump seeks to oust him and that Venezuelan citizens and the military will resist any such attempt. Maduro has also characterized U.S. actions as an effort to take control of Venezuela's oil. Reuters was not able to establish the exact timing or scope of the new operations, nor whether Trump had made a final decision to act. The Venezuelan Communications Ministry did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The Pentagon referred questions to the White House. The CIA declined to comment. Meanwhile, 3 international airlines on Saturday canceled flights from Venezuela after the FAA warned of a, quote, potentially hazardous situation.
All right, let's shift focus now to the just concluded G20 forum. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa said on Sunday that the leaders' declaration adopted at the weekend's G20 summit shows a renewed commitment to multilateral cooperation, even as the United States boycotted the meeting. The US skipped the summit after accusing South Africa's government of prosecuting its white minority, allegations widely debunked and rejected by Pretoria.
At the heart of our presidency lies a conviction that the G20 must act boldly and act together to create an environment of inclusive growth, an environment of reduced inequality, an environment which will support sustainable development. More than that, it reaffirms our renewed commitment to multilateral cooperation and our recognition that our shared goals outweigh our differences.
All right, and now let's cut across to live visuals coming in where Surya Kant, Justice Surya Kant, is now going to take oath as the 53rd Chief Justice of India, taking over from Bhushan Ramakrishna Gawai. So the swearing in visuals coming in, the oath taking is going to follow as Justice Surya Kant becomes the 53rd Chief Justice of India. Remember, the decision to swear him in as the 53rd CJI came in on October 30th, and the oath-taking ceremony is going to take place in Rashtrapati Bhavan today as the President of India is going to administer the oath to Justice Surya Kant, who will take over as the 53rd Chief Justice of India. These are live visuals coming in, and in attendance you have pretty much the entire Union Cabinet and front row seating, including Mr. Amit Shah, Mr. Piyush Goyal and many other cabinet ministers who are now waiting for Justice Surya Kant to be sworn in as the 53rd Chief Justice of India. These are live visuals coming in from Rashtrapati Bhavan, and it seems that the President Murmu has just stepped into the Rashtrapati Bhavan, and these are live visuals that we are bringing for you this morning. There from the Rashtrapati Bhavan, Justice Surya Kant is going to take over as the 53rd Chief Justice of India from Justice Bhushan Ramakrishna Gawai. The 52nd Chief Justice of India will be handing over the baton to the 53rd CJI. These are live visuals coming in from Rashtrapati Bhavan this morning as the oath-taking ceremony is going to commence soon. Remember, Justice Surya Kant is set to take charge as the country's 53rd Chief Justice today, November 24th. These are live visuals coming in from Rashtrapati Bhavan. That is the 53rd Chief Justice of India, who is soon going to take oath and who will take the seat as the Chief Justice of India for a period of 2 years beginning today. Oath-taking ceremony taking place at the Rashtrapati